Welcome to a journey through time and space, where the boundaries between myth and reality blur, where ancient civilizations whisper secrets through stone and earth, and where modern science continues to challenge everything we thought we knew about human history. This is a comprehensive exploration of the world's greatest archaeological mysteries, hidden structures buried beneath our feet, and geological anomalies that defy our conventional understanding of the past. Throughout history, humanity has gazed upon monuments, ruins, and natural wonders with a mixture of awe and bewilderment. We've asked ourselves fundamental questions: who built these structures? How did they achieve such feats of engineering? What catastrophic events shaped our world? And perhaps most intriguingly, what knowledge has been lost to the ages, waiting to be rediscovered? This documentary brings together the most compelling evidence, the most fascinating discoveries, and the most provocative theories from archaeologists, geologists, and historians who have dedicated their lives to understanding our mysterious past. From the sun-scorched deserts of Africa to the frozen tundra of forgotten continents, from underwater monuments hidden beneath the ocean's veil to jungle temples swallowed by nature's relentless growth, we will explore the tangible evidence of civilizations and phenomena that challenge our textbooks and inspire our imagination. Strong short intro to analysis the topic and topic headline. Please let us know in the comments where you are watching this history video and what time you are watching it. And be sure to subscribe to the channel for future videos. Now, let us begin our descent into the shadows of prehistory, into the hidden chambers of the earth, and into the vast mysteries that surround us. Section 1. The catastrophic past. When worlds collide, the earth beneath our feet is far older and far more violent than most people realize. Our planet has not been a stable stage for human civilization. Instead, it has been a turbulent stage of cosmic violence, geological upheaval, and catastrophic transformation. The evidence for these cataclysms is written in the rocks, preserved in ancient texts, and encoded in the collective memory of humanity's oldest cultures. Around 10,850 BCE, something extraordinary occurred on our planet. This specific date, precisely calculated through multiple scientific disciplines, marks what many researchers believe to be a pivotal moment in human history. At this time, evidence suggests that a massive extraterrestrial object, possibly a comet or asteroid, struck the Earth with devastating consequences. The impact and its aftereffects may have fundamentally altered human civilization, redirecting the course of our species and leaving scars upon the landscape that we are only now beginning to understand. The theory of cosmic impact at the end of the last ice age has gained substantial credibility among researchers who study what is known as the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. The Younger Dryas was a period of rapid climate change that occurred approximately 12,800 years ago and lasted for about 1,200 years. During this period, temperatures plummeted, returning the Earth to ice age conditions just as the planet was beginning to warm. This dramatic reversal in climate had catastrophic consequences for megafauna and human populations alike. The evidence for an impact is multifaceted. In sediment layers dated to approximately 10,850 BCE, scientists have discovered a thin layer of material containing iridium, a rare element commonly associated with extraterrestrial objects. This iridium-rich layer has been found across multiple continents, suggesting a widespread impact event. Additionally, researchers have identified platinum and other elements in these sediment layers that are far more common in meteorites than in the Earth's crust. This physical evidence, combined with other geological markers, paints a picture of catastrophic transformation. The impact would have been of almost incomprehensible magnitude. Imagine the most powerful nuclear weapon ever created multiplied thousands of times over. The explosion, the shock waves, the thermal radiation, all would have devastated the region of impact and sent ripples of destruction across the entire planet. The impact would have triggered massive tsunamis, volcanic eruptions stimulated by the disturbance of the Earth's crust, and sent vast quantities of dust and ash into the atmosphere, blocking out the sun and creating a period of prolonged darkness. What makes this scenario particularly intriguing is its correlation with human mythology and ancient texts. Virtually every ancient civilization has flood myths, catastrophe myths, and stories of gods intervening in human affairs during times of global destruction. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the Bible's account of Noah's flood, Hindu texts describing the end of ages, Mesoamerican creation myths, all tell of a time when the heavens opened, the earth shook, and civilization hung in the balance. Could these myths be garbled accounts of actual historical events? Could the legends passed down through countless generations preserve a racial memory of this cosmic catastrophe? The impact around 10,850 BCE would have had profound effects on human civilization. Many scientists theorize that advanced human societies that may have existed prior to this event were catastrophically disrupted. If civilizations had begun to develop, if humans had started to build permanent settlements, develop agriculture, and create organized societies, the impact and its aftermath would have reset human progress. Populations would have been decimated, organized societies would have collapsed, and survivors would have been reduced to struggling for basic survival in a world transformed by darkness and cold. This raises fascinating questions about human history. What if there were advanced civilizations before 10,850 BCE that were wiped out by this cosmic catastrophe? What if the technological advancement we see in the ancient world, the engineering marvels of Egypt, the sophisticated astronomy of Mesoamerica, the impossible architectural feats scattered across the globe, represents not the beginning of human civilization, but a recovery and rebuilding after a more advanced society had been destroyed? The pole shift theory adds another dimension to these catastrophic scenarios. Some researchers argue that impacts of sufficient magnitude could have caused the Earth's crust to shift relative to the planet's axis, dramatically altering where the poles are located. Such a shift would have been accompanied by earthquakes of unimaginable power, tsunamis that would dwarf any in recorded history, and rapid climate changes that would be immediately catastrophic for all life. Entire regions that were temperate would become frozen, while ice-bound areas would suddenly experience tropical conditions. The displacement would have been sudden, violent, and absolute. Evidence for such pole shifts exists in the geological record. Magnetite minerals in rock formations align with the Earth's magnetic field at the time they form. By examining the orientation of these minerals in ancient rocks, scientists can determine where the magnetic poles were located at different points in history. Some researchers claim to find evidence of dramatic shifts in pole position, though mainstream geology attributes these variations to different processes. The consequences of a pole shift would have been catastrophic beyond measure. The axial tilt would have changed, altering the angle at which sunlight strikes the Earth's surface. This would have fundamentally changed climate patterns, ocean currents, and atmospheric circulation. The shift would have been accompanied by the Earth's crust cracking and buckling, creating new mountains and valleys, opening chasms, and causing massive earthquakes. Tsunamis would have been triggered by both the impact itself and the crustal displacement, sweeping across continents and depositing sediment from the ocean floor far inland. The evidence for such cataclysmic events is written across multiple landscapes on our planet. In various parts of the world, we find massive geological formations that appear to have been created by sudden, violent events rather than gradual processes. We find evidence of advanced civilizations that suddenly appear in the archaeological record, suggesting that perhaps earlier, more advanced societies were entirely erased by catastrophe. And we find in the mythologies and sacred texts of virtually every ancient civilization consistent themes of cosmic destruction and divine intervention. What becomes clear when we examine these threads of evidence together is that the conventional understanding of human history, a slow, gradual progression from primitive hunter-gatherers to agricultural societies to civilizations, may be incomplete. The true history of humanity may be far more dramatic, far more violent, and far more mysterious than our textbooks suggest. It may include episodes of technological advancement, catastrophic regression, recovery, and rebuilt civilization on multiple occasions. The period following the impact around 10,850 BCE would have been a time of profound struggle for human survivors. Populations would have been scattered, separated from one another by vast distances and the need to pursue basic survival. Knowledge would have been lost. The survivors would have retained memories of the catastrophe, preserved in oral traditions and eventually recorded in written mythologies. And slowly, over thousands of years, humanity would have begun to rebuild. Section 2. Göbekli Tepe, where civilization began in the stark landscape of southern Turkey, near the Syrian border, archaeologists have uncovered a site that fundamentally challenges our understanding of human civilization. This site is Göbekli Tepe, and it is one of the most significant archaeological discoveries of the 21st century. When excavations began in the 1990s, archaeologists were confronted with evidence that contradicted conventional chronologies of human development. Beneath the Turkish soil lay structures dating back approximately 12,000 years. These were not simple huts or temporary camps. These were sophisticated religious monuments built by communities of people who possessed considerable organizational ability and skilled labor. Yet according to conventional archaeology, Humans during this period should have been simple hunter-gatherers with no permanent settlements, no organized religion, and certainly no capacity to construct monumental architecture. Göbekli Tepe consists of multiple ceremonial platforms and structures arranged in a carefully planned layout. The centerpiece of each platform is a pair of massive stone T-shaped pillars, some reaching heights of 6 meters and weighing up to 16 tons. These pillars are carved with intricate imagery depicting animals, particularly scorpions, snakes, boars, and birds. The craftsmanship is extraordinary. The carvings are detailed and precise, demonstrating both artistic skill and symbolic intention. Surrounding these central pillars are walls constructed from carefully shaped and fitted stone blocks. The sheer sophistication of Göbekli Tepe raises profound questions. How were these massive pillars quarried from bedrock? How were they transported across distances? How were they positioned so precisely? How did an apparently nomadic population organize the labor required to construct such monuments? The conventional answer, that people were too primitive, too unsophisticated, too disorganized to accomplish such feats, is clearly contradicted by the physical evidence staring archaeologists in the face. The scale of the site indicates significant population involvement. Estimates suggest that Göbekli Tepe may have served as a gathering place for hundreds, perhaps thousands, of people from surrounding regions. This implies that early humans had developed sophisticated methods of communication, had established social hierarchies capable of organizing complex labor, and possessed a shared belief system that motivated them to undertake such enormous communal projects. These are hallmarks of what we would normally consider advanced civilization. The religious significance of Göbekli Tepe cannot be overstated. The arrangement of the pillars, the elaborate carvings, the central positioning in what appears to be open-air ceremonial spaces, all suggest that this was a temple complex, a place where people gathered to participate in rituals and religious ceremonies. The predominance of dangerous predators in the carvings, scorpions and snakes positioned above human figures, suggests that this may have been a temple dedicated to managing human fears, perhaps to rituals of initiation or transformation. What is remarkable is the complete absence of evidence that the residents of Göbekli Tepe were engaged in agriculture. Excavations reveal no domesticated crops, no evidence of permanent settlement, no artifacts of daily life that would suggest a settled agricultural society. Instead, the evidence indicates that the people who built Göbekli Tepe were still hunter-gatherers, still nomadic or semi-nomadic, still reliant on hunting and gathering for sustenance. Yet they possessed the organizational capacity and motivation to construct monumental religious architecture. This discovery rewrites the conventional narrative of human development. According to standard archaeological theory, agriculture preceded civilization. Once humans learned to cultivate crops and domesticate animals, permanent settlements became possible. Once settlements were established, social complexity grew, allowing for the development of religion, government, and culture. Only then, in this conventional sequence, would humans have the surplus resources and organizational structure to construct monumental architecture. Göbekli Tepe suggests the opposite causality. Here we have sophisticated monumental religious architecture preceding the development of agriculture. This implies that religious belief, spirituality, the need for communal gathering, the desire to create sacred spaces, may have been the driver for human civilization. The religious ceremonies conducted at Göbekli Tepe may have provided the organizational structure that eventually led to agricultural development and permanent settlement. The date of Göbekli Tepe, 12,000 years ago, is particularly significant. This is just 1,150 years after the catastrophic impact theorized to have occurred around 10,850 BCE. Is it possible that Göbekli Tepe represents an early attempt by survivors of a more advanced civilization to rebuild, to recover knowledge, to recreate the religious traditions that had defined their lost society? Is it possible that the apparent simplicity of the material culture, the lack of pottery, the absence of domesticated crops, represents not the primitive nature of the builders, but rather the temporary displacement of people who had lived in a more sophisticated society? The pillars themselves contain intriguing details. Some scholars have noted that the T-shaped pillars bear a resemblance to stylized human figures. The horizontal crosspiece might represent arms, while the vertical shaft represents the body and legs. Could these pillars represent supernatural beings, ancestors, or deified individuals? Could they be representations of the gods who guided the survivors through the catastrophe into the new world being rebuilt at Göbekli Tepe? The site continued to be used for thousands of years, through the period when agriculture was being developed in the nearby Fertile Crescent. Eventually, Göbekli Tepe was deliberately buried. Archaeological evidence suggests that the site was intentionally covered with earth and stones, effectively preserved for future generations. Why would a community deliberately bury a sacred site? Was it done to preserve it for a future civilization that might recover it? Was it done because the site had served its purpose? Was it done as an act of ritual closure, saying goodbye to one chapter of human history and beginning another? The architectural sophistication extends beyond the central pillars. Recent excavations have revealed walls constructed from limestone blocks that were carefully shaped and fitted together. The quality of the masonry is remarkable. These were not crude structures but carefully engineered buildings. Some walls appear to have been deliberately constructed with slight inward angles, which would provide greater structural stability and allow the walls to support greater weight. This indicates sophisticated understanding of architectural engineering principles. The animal carvings on the pillars and walls are equally remarkable. Scorpions appear frequently, often with exaggerated stingers and positioned above human figures in what appears to be a threatening posture. Snakes, also dangerous predators in the ancient Near East, are depicted with considerable detail. Birds, particularly what appears to be vultures or eagles, are carved with anatomical accuracy. Boars, dangerous wild animals, are depicted in various poses. The consistent depiction of dangerous animals suggests that the site had religious significance related to protecting humans from predatory threats, or perhaps to incorporating the power and danger of these creatures into the spiritual realm. One of the most enigmatic findings at Göbekli Tepe is the absence of evidence of defensive structures. There are no walls surrounding the settlement for protection, no evidence of fortifications or organized warfare. This suggests a society that, despite being capable of great organizational achievement, was not characterized by violent conflict between groups. This is consistent with what we know about pre-agricultural societies, which generally had lower population densities and thus less competition for resources and territory. The discovery of Göbekli Tepe has prompted scholars to reconsider other ancient sites and find evidence of similar sophistication in pre-agricultural societies. It has become clear that the emergence of civilization was far more complex and far less linear than previously assumed. Rather than a simple progression from primitive to advanced, we see evidence of sophisticated societies, catastrophic disruption, loss of knowledge, and rebuilding. We see evidence of religious sophistication and organizational capacity developing among peoples who had not yet adopted agriculture. This discovery also raises intriguing questions about the purpose and function of the site. Was Göbekli Tepe a healing temple where the sick came to be treated? Was it a place where the dead were venerated and honored? Was it a location where shamanic rituals were conducted to maintain harmony between the human world and the spiritual world? Was it a place of pilgrimage where people journeyed from vast distances to participate in sacred ceremonies? The limited archaeological evidence, combined with the religious nature of the architecture, suggests that it served one or all of these functions. The labor required to construct and maintain Göbekli Tepe was substantial. Quarrying the massive T-shaped pillars required tools and techniques. Moving stones weighing up to 16 tons required organization and cooperative effort. The precision of the stonework suggests specialized knowledge passed down through generations. All of this required social structure, leadership, and the ability to compel or motivate people to undertake work that had no immediate survival benefit. This raises the question of how such a society organized itself. Who were the leaders? Were they shamans who claimed religious authority? Were they warrior chiefs who commanded through displays of strength? Were they councils of elders who made decisions through consensus? The archaeological evidence does not reveal the answer, but the existence of sophisticated religious architecture suggests that religious authority played a significant role in maintaining social cohesion. The artistry displayed at Göbekli Tepe is a testament to the cognitive and creative capacities of the people who built it. The ability to carve stone, to depict animals with anatomical accuracy and symbolic intention, to envision abstract religious concepts and manifest them in monumental form, all of these require an advanced level of human cognition and consciousness. The evidence at Göbekli Tepe demonstrates conclusively that humans 12,000 years ago possessed intellectual capacities equal to modern humans. Section 3. The Amazon Revelation through technology. For centuries, the Amazon rainforest has been viewed through a romantic and distorted lens. European explorers returned with tales of untamed wilderness, impenetrable jungle, and primitive peoples living in harmony with nature. This image has dominated Western understanding of the Amazon and has fundamentally shaped our view of its ancient history. However, the advancement of LiDAR technology, light detection and ranging, has revealed that this romantic image is a profound misunderstanding. Beneath the dense canopy of the Amazon rainforest lies evidence of massive urban settlements, sophisticated agricultural systems, and civilizations of considerable sophistication. The Amazon was not a pristine wilderness, but a landscape shaped, engineered, and managed by large human populations over centuries. LiDAR works by sending laser pulses through the forest canopy and measuring how long it takes for the light to return. By analyzing these returning signals, scientists can create three-dimensional maps of the landscape beneath the vegetation. Through this technology, buried structures become visible. Ancient roads, pyramids, plazas, mounds, and other architectural features that have been invisible to archaeologists working on the ground suddenly appear in extraordinary detail. The scale of the discoveries is staggering. Where archaeologists previously believed the Amazon to be sparsely populated, LiDAR reveals vast urban centers and networks of settlements connected by sophisticated road systems. Some of these sites cover areas of hundreds of square kilometers. The populations that inhabited these settlements were substantial, tens of thousands of people in some cases. One of the most significant discoveries revealed through LiDAR is the sophisticated agricultural system that supported these populations. The Amazon people developed engineered landscapes that maximized food production in an environment that, to untrained eyes, appears inhospitable to agriculture. They created raised field systems in seasonally flooded areas, allowing crops to be grown above water during the rainy season. They constructed terraces on hillsides to increase arable land and prevent erosion. They created networks of canals and reservoirs to manage water flow and support irrigation. Most remarkably, archaeologists have discovered evidence of what might be called Amazonian terra preta, created soil. Scattered throughout the Amazon are patches of dark, nutrient-rich soil that contrast dramatically with the surrounding poor, acidic soils typical of tropical rainforests. This terra preta appears to be an engineered product, created by ancient peoples through the careful mixture of biochar, organic matter, and minerals. The result is soil far more fertile than the natural rainforest soil, capable of supporting more intensive agriculture. The creation of terra preta over large areas would have been a monumental undertaking. It required the accumulation of massive quantities of organic matter, the creation of biochar through controlled burning, the transportation and mixing of materials, and decades or centuries of management. The fact that terra preta patches survive to the present day and can be identified and studied speaks to the intentional nature of their creation and the scale of the civilization that produced them. These agricultural innovations suggest a society with sophisticated knowledge of soil chemistry, ecology, and agricultural engineering. The people of the Amazon understood how to manipulate their environment to support larger populations than the land's natural productivity would allow. This is not the behavior of primitive peoples living in harmony with nature. This is the behavior of sophisticated engineers actively transforming their environment to meet the needs of growing populations. The urban centers revealed by LiDAR are equally impressive. Large plazas are surrounded by residential structures arranged in organized patterns. Evidence of central administrative buildings suggests government structures. The size and sophistication of these settlements indicate considerable social organization, labor specialization, and resource management. These were not temporary camps or small villages, but planned urban centers. One of the most significant sites revealed by LiDAR is LiDAR survey in the Bolivian Amazon, where evidence of what appears to be an ancient city has been discovered. The site contains what appear to be pyramidal structures arranged around central plazas. The layout suggests astronomical or religious significance. The scale of the construction suggests substantial population investment in religious or governmental structures, similar to the patterns seen in Mesoamerican and Egyptian civilizations. The road systems connecting these settlements are equally remarkable. Straight roads cutting through the forest, engineered to facilitate movement between settlements, demonstrate sophisticated road-building technology. These were not natural paths worn by repeated travel, but engineered structures, constructed to specific specifications. The roads suggest an organized society with the capacity to undertake large-scale public works projects. The existence of these settlements and infrastructure raises profound questions about the population of the pre-Columbian Amazon. Population estimates based on ethnographic observations of indigenous peoples at the time of European contact have been conservative, typically suggesting populations of hundreds of thousands to a few million people across the entire Amazon basin. LiDAR evidence suggests that populations may have been substantially larger, perhaps in the tens of millions. The Amazon may have been one of the most densely populated regions of the world before the arrival of Europeans brought disease and devastation. The collapse of these Amazonian civilizations is one of the great tragedies of human history. Beginning in 1492, European contact brought epidemic diseases, smallpox, measles, influenza, to which indigenous populations had no immunity. Estimates suggest that 90% or more of the indigenous population of the Americas died within a century of European contact. In the Amazon specifically, the devastation was equally catastrophic. The sophisticated civilizations that had engineered the landscape and supported millions of people simply ceased to exist. Their cities were abandoned, their agricultural systems fell into disuse, and the forest reclaimed the land. Within a few centuries, the evidence of these civilizations was so thoroughly overgrown that European explorers encountering the Amazon believed it was a pristine wilderness untouched by human hands. The romantic myth of the Amazon as virgin nature, unpolluted by civilization, became the dominant narrative. It was only with the advent of LiDAR technology in the 21st century that the true history of the Amazon began to be revealed. The technological sophistication of Amazonian peoples extended beyond agriculture and urban planning. Evidence of sophisticated water management systems demonstrates understanding of hydraulics. Reservoirs and canal systems were engineered to capture and distribute water during seasonal variations. Some systems appear designed to manage flooding during rainy seasons and provide irrigation during dry seasons. Ceramics discovered at Amazonian sites display considerable artistry and sophistication. Pottery vessels are decorated with complex designs and appear to have been produced through specialized craft production. The uniformity of design across wide areas suggests trade networks and cultural connections between different settlements. The quality of the pottery indicates that ceramic production was sufficiently important to society that specialist artisans dedicated themselves to the craft. The biodiversity of the modern Amazon, which has been attributed to pristine nature, may actually be a product of ancient Amazonian management. Contemporary researchers have identified patterns in the distribution of useful plants in the Amazon, fruit trees, nut trees, medicinal plants, that suggest deliberate cultivation rather than natural distribution. In other words, the Amazon that Europeans encountered as seeming wilderness may have actually been a carefully managed landscape, designed and tended by indigenous peoples over centuries to maximize the resources available to human populations. This revelation through LiDAR technology has profound implications for our understanding of human civilization. It suggests that high-density urban civilizations developed independently in multiple regions of the world, not just the Old World centers like Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, and China, but also in the Americas. It suggests that these civilizations were capable of achieving sophistication in engineering, agriculture, and urban planning comparable to Old World civilizations. And it demonstrates how rapidly evidence of such civilizations can disappear, erased by disease, natural disaster, or climate change, leaving future generations to mistakenly believe that wilderness is natural rather than engineered. The LiDAR discoveries in the Amazon have prompted similar surveys in other tropical regions. Preliminary results suggest that Cambodia's Angkor civilization may have been far larger and more sophisticated than previously believed, with satellite cities and agricultural systems extending far beyond the currently understood boundaries. Investigations in the Congo Basin have revealed evidence of pre-Columbian settlements in Africa. The application of LiDAR technology is fundamentally changing our understanding of human civilization and population densities in the pre-modern world. Section 4. Submerged WORLDS, lost continents and underwater ruins. The world's oceans conceal secrets of astonishing proportions. As sea levels have changed throughout human history, civilizations have been submerged, lost cities have been buried beneath the waves, and evidence of human activity has been preserved in underwater archaeological sites. These submerged worlds provide crucial evidence about human history and raise tantalizing questions about civilizations that disappeared beneath the waves. The relationship between humans and sea level change has been profound throughout history. During the last ice age, vast quantities of water were locked in glacial ice, causing sea levels to be approximately 130 meters lower than they are today. At that time, vast continental shelves that are now underwater were dry land, habitable regions where human populations lived. As ice ages ended and glaciers melted, these regions were inundated. The rising seas trapped populations on islands and peninsulas, isolated populations that had previously been connected, and submerged the archaeological evidence of civilizations that had flourished on continental shelves. This process of rising seas and submerged lands may provide a geological explanation for the global prevalence of flood myths. Populations living on continental shelves and coastal regions would have experienced dramatic and catastrophic inundation as sea levels rose. The memories of these events, passed down through oral traditions and eventually recorded in writing, may have become the flood myths found in cultures around the world. What was experienced as a local catastrophe became, in the mythologies of surviving peoples, a global deluge. The Yonaguni Monument, located off the coast of Japan, is one of the most provocative underwater archaeological sites. Discovered in 1987, this massive stone structure rises from the ocean floor and displays characteristics that suggest artificial construction. The monument consists of large blocks of stone arranged in geometric patterns, with sharp right angles and flat surfaces that appear too regular to be natural geological formations. Some structures resemble staircases, others resemble platforms or terraces. The overall dimensions are substantial, approximately 150 meters long, 100 meters wide, and up to 27 meters tall. The question of whether Yonaguni is a natural formation or the work of human hands remains contested among geologists and archaeologists. Proponents of the artificial construction hypothesis point to the geometric regularity of the structures, the sharp angles that are rarely found in natural rock formations, and the apparent intentionality of the arrangement. Critics argue that the monument is a natural formation, the result of differential erosion that creates the illusion of artificial structure. They point to similar formations found in other locations and argue that human interpretation tends to impose intentional patterns on random natural features. However, the dating of the Yonaguni monument is crucial to this question. The monument is currently submerged beneath approximately 27 meters of water. If the monument is indeed artificial, it must have been constructed at a time when sea levels were lower, when the site was above water. Based on geological models of sea level change, the continental shelf off Japan was above water until approximately 10,000 years ago, when rising seas inundated the region. If Yonaguni was constructed before that inundation, it would represent evidence of sophisticated maritime civilizations existing during or before the period of rising seas at the end of the last ice age. The possibility of Yonaguni representing an artificial construction becomes more intriguing when considered alongside other underwater sites. If the monument is indeed artificial, it is not an isolated anomaly, but part of a broader pattern of submerged settlements and structures around the world. Pavlopetri, located in the Mediterranean Sea off the coast of Greece, presents a clearer case of submerged archaeology. This underwater site contains what are unmistakably the remains of an ancient settlement. Streets, houses, towers, and other structures are visible on the seafloor. The site dates to approximately 2800 BCE, a period when sea levels were lower and this region was above water. As the Mediterranean rose, the settlement was submerged, preserved underwater in remarkably good condition. Archaeological investigation has revealed pottery, tools, and other artifacts that provide evidence of a sophisticated civilization occupying the site thousands of years ago. The preservation of Pavlopetri beneath the waves has allowed archaeologists to study it in remarkable detail. Unlike terrestrial sites where structures are exposed to weathering and are often destroyed or disturbed by subsequent human activity, Pavlopetri has been preserved in situ. The underwater environment provides protection, and the anaerobic conditions inhibit decay. Archaeologists have been able to map the settlement comprehensively and study the organization and planning of the ancient community. The existence of Pavlopetri demonstrates that Mediterranean civilizations extended beyond the known terrestrial archaeological sites. If one submerged settlement has been preserved and discovered, how many others might exist, as yet undetected, beneath the waves? The continental shelves of Europe, Africa, and Asia potentially contain the remains of numerous submerged settlements, lost cities that sank beneath rising seas millennia ago. The Gulf of Cambay in India presents an even more controversial underwater site. In 1999, geological surveys of the Gulf floor revealed what appear to be large, geometric structures beneath the sediment. These structures resemble organized urban layouts, with linear features that could be roads or walls and rectangular features that could be building foundations. The structures cover an area of approximately 9,000 square kilometers. The dating of these structures is contested and crucial. If the structures are indeed artificial, they must have been constructed at a time when the Gulf floor was above sea level. Geological models suggest that the Gulf of Cambay has been underwater for approximately 11,000 years or longer. If the structures date to before that inundation, they would represent evidence of a civilization predating known civilizations of the Indian subcontinent, a civilization that was flourishing before the development of the Harappan civilization that emerged around 3,300 BCE. Proponents of the artificial construction hypothesis at the Gulf of Cambay site argue that the geometric regularity of the structures suggests intentional design rather than natural formation. They point to the apparent organization and planning evident in the layout of linear and rectangular features. They argue that sophisticated culture capable of constructing large-scale urban centers would have been likely to develop in river valleys like the Indus Valley, and that the Gulf of Cambay site represents evidence of such a civilization before it was submerged. Critics argue that seismic activity and other geological processes can create geometric patterns that appear artificial to human observers. They point out that underwater surveys can be ambiguous, and features that appear to be structures on sonar can be natural geological formations. They argue that without excavation and physical evidence of artifacts, the claim of artificial construction remains speculative. However, a few artifacts have been recovered from the Gulf of Cambay site that provide intriguing evidence. Pottery shards and stone tools recovered from dredging operations appear to date to periods well before known civilizations of the region. While the sample size is small and the excavation systematic, these artifacts suggest that the structures may indeed be the remains of human settlements. The possibility of pre-Ice Age civilizations becomes particularly intriguing when we consider the global pattern of submerged sites. Around the world, from Japan to Greece to India, underwater locations show evidence of submerged settlements and structures. These sites are concentrated on continental shelves, areas that would have been dry land during periods of lower sea level. The timing of these potential submerged civilizations is significant. The continental shelves of the world were above sea level during the last ice age and would have remained above water until approximately 10,000 to 8,000 years ago, as ice age glaciers melted and sea levels rose. This period, the end of the last ice age, coincides with the catastrophic impact theorized to have occurred around 10,850 BCE. Could this be more than coincidence? If advanced civilizations existed on continental shelves during the Ice Age, they would have been directly impacted by rising seas. The inundation of coastal settlements would have been gradual, occurring over centuries or millennia as sea levels rose. Populations living on continental shelves would have been forced to migrate inland, to higher ground, to avoid being submerged. The loss of productive coastal areas would have had profound impacts on populations dependent on marine resources. The disruption would have been significant enough to drive migrations and influence the development of subsequent civilizations. Could the process of sea level rise at the end of the Ice Age have been accelerated by the catastrophic impact theorized to have occurred around 10,850 BCE? Massive ice sheet collapses triggered by the thermal effects of impact could have released vast quantities of meltwater, accelerating sea level rise. The combination of normal post-Ice Age melting and accelerated melting triggered by impact could have created a period of rapid inundation far more severe than the gradual process occurring under normal conditions. The archaeological evidence from submerged sites, combined with mythological references to global floods, creates a compelling picture of a period of dramatic environmental change and human disruption around the time of the proposed impact. Populations living on continental shelves would have experienced catastrophic inundation. Civilizations would have been disrupted. Migrations would have been forced. Genetic evidence might preserve the memory of these events in the form of bottlenecks in human population genetics, moments when populations experienced drastic reductions in size. The underwater archaeological sites around the world represent a frontier of research that remains largely unexplored. The technology for underwater archaeology is advancing, allowing archaeologists to survey larger areas more efficiently and conduct excavations in deeper waters. As this technology improves and as more underwater sites are investigated, the true extent of submerged civilizations will become clearer. The hidden history of human civilization, preserved beneath the waves, is beginning to be revealed. Section 5. Geological anomalies, natural wonders mistaken for artifacts. Not all ancient mysteries are the work of human hands. The earth itself is a creator of wonders, a sculptor of stone and earth that produces features of such profound strangeness that they naturally invite speculation about their origins. Some geological formations are so unusual, so apparently impossible according to conventional geological processes, that they have been attributed to human construction or supernatural intervention. Understanding these formations, both separating the genuinely natural from the genuinely artificial, is crucial to accurately interpreting the archaeological record. Devil's Tower, located in northeastern Wyoming, is a dramatic example of a geological formation that invites speculation about non-natural origins. Rising approximately 386 meters above the surrounding landscape, this massive columnar structure of igneous rock dominates the landscape for hundreds of kilometers in all directions. To observers unfamiliar with geological processes, the formation appears artificial. The columnar shape, with its regular vertical striations and apparent geometric precision, seems too orderly to be a natural product of geological processes. Multiple Native American cultures have created mythological accounts explaining Devil's Tower's origins. The Lakota tell of a girl being chased by a large bear. As the bear pursued her, she prayed to the Great Spirit for protection. The earth rose beneath her, lifting her to safety atop the growing tower. The bear, unable to climb the smooth rock, raked its claws across the side of the tower, creating the vertical striations visible today. The Cheyenne and other tribes have similar legends attributing the tower's origin to supernatural or divine intervention. The geological reality is that Devil's Tower formed through igneous intrusion and subsequent erosion. Approximately 50 million years ago, molten rock beneath the surface began to cool and solidify. As the igneous rock cooled, it contracted, and the contraction created the characteristic columnar fracture patterns visible today. The surrounding sedimentary rock eroded more rapidly than the harder igneous rock, exposing the tower. The columnar structure is not the result of cutting or carving, but rather the natural consequence of the internal structure of the cooling igneous mass. However, understanding the geological origin of Devil's Tower does not diminish the significance of the formation. It remains a remarkable natural wonder, a location of profound spiritual importance to the indigenous peoples of the region. The geological process that created it, magma cooling and contracting to create columnar structures, occurs in other locations around the world, most famously in the Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland and in the columnar basalts of the Pacific Northwest. These formations are not less remarkable for being natural. They are remarkable expressions of the power of geological processes. The Richat structure, located in the Sahara Desert in Mauritania, is another geological formation that has inspired speculative theories about its origins. Also known as the Eye of the Sahara, this massive circular feature visible from space appears to human observers as an artificial construct. Formation consists of concentric circular ridges, with the structure measuring approximately 50 kilometers in diameter. The geometric regularity in the circular shape invites speculation that this is an artificial feature, perhaps a landing site for spacecraft or the remains of a submerged civilization like Atlantis. The geological explanation for the Richat structure is equally fascinating. The formation is an eroded anticline, an arch of rock layers that has been exposed by erosion. The rock strata in the region are of different ages and different resistance to erosion. The harder rock strata erode more slowly, creating ridges, while softer rock erodes more rapidly, creating valleys. The result is the concentric circular pattern visible today. The structure is not a single feature, but rather the erosional expression of the internal geology of the rocks in the region. The Richat structure is remarkable not because it is an artificial construct, but because it is a natural expression of the interior structure of the Earth. The exposure of these rock layers through erosion reveals billions of years of geological history encoded in the rock formations. Rather than evidence of artificial construction or lost civilizations, the structure is evidence of the dynamic processes that continuously reshape the surface of our planet. However, the existence of formations like Devil's Tower and the Richat structure demonstrates an important principle. Not all mysterious formations are artificial, and not all natural formations are easily explained. The line between natural and artificial, between the products of geological processes and the products of human engineering, is not always obvious. This creates a critical need for careful scientific investigation to distinguish between the two. Some of the most challenging questions in archaeology involve precisely this distinction. Features that appear artificial might be natural. Features that are natural might be misinterpreted as artificial. The task of determining which requires careful analysis of multiple lines of evidence: geological context, material composition, evidence of tool use, dating methods, and comparison with known geological or archaeological phenomena. This principle is crucial when evaluating more controversial archaeological sites. Claims that underwater formations are artificial constructions require careful evaluation of whether the formations are consistent with known geological processes. Claims that monumental structures were built by lost civilizations require careful analysis of whether the structures show evidence of human construction methods and tools. The default assumption should be that geological formations are natural unless clear evidence of artificial construction is demonstrated. At the same time, we must be careful not to dismiss genuine archaeological evidence simply because conventional narratives suggest that such evidence is impossible. If genuine artifacts or structures appear at locations where conventional theory suggests they should not exist, we must expand our understanding of the past rather than rejecting the evidence. The history of archaeology is replete with examples of discoveries that contradicted conventional wisdom and forced scholars to reconsider established chronologies. Section 6. Ancient Engineering and Lost Technologies. The monumental architecture scattered across the globe, the pyramids of Egypt, the temples of Angkor Wat, the cities of Machu Picchu, the stone structures of Stonehenge, all testify to the remarkable engineering capabilities of ancient peoples. Yet how these structures were constructed remains, in many cases, mysterious. The tools available to ancient peoples were seemingly inadequate for moving massive stones, cutting precise angles, and constructing structures of such precision and durability. This has led to speculation that ancient peoples possessed technologies lost to the modern world, technologies that would have been capable of manipulating stone and earth in ways that seem impossible to modern engineers, using only the tools that archaeological evidence suggests were available to the ancients. The construction methods of the Egyptian pyramids provide a case in point. The Great Pyramid of Giza contains approximately 2.3 million stone blocks, each weighing on average 2.5 tons, with some blocks weighing as much as 80 tons. These blocks fit together with extraordinary precision, so tight that a knife blade cannot be inserted between many of the stones. The alignment of the pyramid to true north is extraordinarily precise. The internal chambers and passages are constructed with such precision that modern surveyors using theodolites find it difficult to improve upon the accuracy achieved by ancient Egyptian engineers. How did the ancient Egyptians accomplish this feat? Conventional archaeology attributes the construction to the organization of massive labor forces, the use of sledges to drag stones, the use of ramps to move stones up the sides of the pyramid, and the use of water to lubricate the sledges and reduce friction. Recent experimental archaeology has demonstrated that these methods could theoretically work, though the effort required would be monumental. However, alternative theories suggest that the ancients possessed technologies that would have made the construction easier. Some researchers have speculated about the use of sound waves or vibrational frequencies to reduce the weight of stones or to make them more malleable. Others have suggested the use of anti-gravity devices or technologies capable of manipulating gravitational fields. These theories remain speculative and lack physical evidence, but they reflect the sense that conventional explanations may not fully account for the precision and scale of ancient construction. More controversially, some researchers have suggested that extraterrestrial visitors or advanced pre-human civilizations assisted in the construction of the pyramids and other monumental structures. These theories fall into the realm of pseudo-archaeology and are rejected by mainstream scholars, largely because they lack empirical evidence and because they tend to diminish the remarkable achievements of ancient human civilizations. Yet the questions about how ancient peoples accomplished these feats remain valid and worthy of investigation. The construction of Stonehenge in England presents different engineering challenges. The monument consists of massive stones arranged in circles and alignments, many of which have been transported enormous distances. The blue stones, which form an inner circle, were quarried in Wales and transported approximately 240 kilometers to the Stonehenge site. How were these stones transported across such distances? What engineering methods were used? Archaeological evidence suggests that the stones were dragged and rolled on the ground, that they may have been transported by water using sledges, and that the construction took place over centuries, with different phases of development and modification. The alignment of Stonehenge to celestial events, the summer and winter solstices, lunar standstills, indicates that the builders possessed sophisticated knowledge of astronomy. The fact that the monument was oriented and aligned to track these astronomical events suggests that it served religious or calendrical functions. The precision of the alignments indicates that the builders took considerable care to ensure that the monument was oriented correctly, even before the monument was fully constructed. Machu Picchu, the Incan city located high in the Andes Mountains of Peru, presents engineering challenges of a different type. The city was constructed on a mountain ridge approximately 2,400 meters above sea level, on terrain so steep that construction seems nearly impossible. Yet the Incas constructed a city of remarkable complexity, with temples, residences, agricultural terraces, and a sophisticated system of water management and drainage. The stones fit together without mortar, yet with such precision that the structures have survived numerous earthquakes. The construction of Machu Picchu demonstrates not only sophisticated engineering, but also sophisticated understanding of local geology and hydrology. The Incas constructed drainage systems that direct water away from the buildings, preventing damage from seasonal rains. The orientation of buildings and plazas suggests astronomical significance. The agricultural terraces are engineered to maximize productivity while preventing erosion. All of this was accomplished without the use of wheels, without draft animals suitable for mountain terrain, and without modern surveying instruments. The question of how such precise engineering was accomplished without modern tools has led to speculations about lost technologies. Some researchers have suggested that the Incas used acoustic resonance or other vibrational methods to quarry and cut stone. Others have suggested that they used chemical processes to soften stone. These theories remain speculative, but they reflect the genuine puzzlement that modern engineers feel when confronting these accomplishments. The technology of stone working in the ancient world was far more sophisticated than conventional understanding suggests. Evidence from archaeological sites around the world indicates that ancient peoples possessed detailed knowledge of the properties of different stone types, understood how to split and shape stone using minimal tools, and could achieve remarkable precision in their stonework. The tools used were simple copper and bronze chisels, stone hammers, wooden levers, but the understanding of how to use these tools effectively was profound. Experimental archaeology has demonstrated that remarkable feats of stonework can be accomplished using only ancient tools and methods. The quarrying of massive blocks, the transportation of stones across distances, the precise fitting of stones without mortar, all have been successfully replicated using only tools and methods available to ancient peoples. These experiments suggest that conventional explanations for ancient construction, while requiring tremendous labor and organization, are not implausible. However, the efficiency of ancient construction methods remains puzzling. If the movement of a single stone block required thousands of workers and months of labor, how did ancient civilizations manage to construct pyramids containing millions of blocks in the relatively short time that archaeological evidence suggests? The answer may lie in methods and organizational structures that left little archaeological evidence. Perhaps the ancients possessed knowledge of engineering that allowed for more efficient construction than modern experiments suggest. Perhaps labor organization was so sophisticated that large-scale construction was more efficient than modern understanding assumes. The reality is that we do not fully understand how ancient peoples accomplished their engineering feats. Our modern perspective, shaped by industrial-era technologies, may prevent us from fully grasping the methods available to and used by ancient peoples. The answers may not require invoking lost technologies or extraterrestrial intervention. Instead, they may require deeper understanding of the knowledge, organizational capabilities, and labor systems that ancient civilizations possessed. Section 7, Lost Civilizations and Archaeological GAPS. The conventional chronology of human civilization shows gaps, periods and regions where the archaeological record is silent, where no evidence of human activity has yet been discovered, or where evidence exists but has not been interpreted as indicating the presence of civilization. These gaps in the archaeological record may represent genuine lacunae, periods when humans had not yet populated certain regions or had not yet developed sophisticated cultures. Alternatively, they may represent periods when civilizations existed but left no discoverable evidence, or evidence that has been destroyed or obscured. One of the most intriguing gaps in the archaeological record is the period between the emergence of anatomically modern humans, approximately 200,000 years ago, and the emergence of complex civilizations, approximately 6,000 to 8,000 years ago. For the vast majority of human history, our ancestors were hunter-gatherers, moving from place to place in search of food, creating temporary camps and leaving minimal archaeological evidence. The emergence of agriculture, permanent settlements, and complex societies appears to have occurred relatively suddenly, within a period of perhaps 2,000 years across multiple regions of the world. Why this sudden emergence of civilization? Why, after tens of thousands of years of human existence, did multiple regions of the world independently develop agriculture, establish permanent settlements, and build organized societies within such a short time frame? Various explanations have been proposed. Climate change may have made agriculture more viable. Population pressure may have compelled the adoption of more intensive food production methods. The domestication of certain plant and animal species may have made agriculture attractive. All of these factors may have played roles. However, an alternative explanation suggests that civilizations did exist before the conventional timeline, but have been lost to history. The catastrophic impact theorized to have occurred around 10,850 BCE could have been sufficiently destructive to eliminate evidence of earlier civilizations. Geological evidence of this impact would erase or cover archaeological evidence from earlier periods. The survivors, reduced to small populations struggling for survival, might retain no memory of or archaeological evidence of the advanced civilization that preceded the catastrophe. Göbekli Tepe provides circumstantial support for this hypothesis. A site of such sophisticated religious architecture, constructed 12,000 years ago, should not exist according to conventional chronologies, yet it does. This suggests that our understanding of pre-agricultural human capacity for organization and construction is incomplete. Perhaps other sites of similar or greater sophistication exist, waiting to be discovered or awaiting reinterpretation of already known sites. The archaeological record from around the world contains anomalous sites that do not fit neatly into conventional chronologies. The alignment of megaliths to astronomical events, the precision of ancient architecture, the evidence of sophisticated knowledge of mathematics and geometry, all suggest that ancient peoples possessed understanding and capabilities that conventional archaeology struggles to explain. The underwater sites discussed previously, Yonaguni, Pavlopetri, the Gulf of Cambay, represent evidence of civilizations that have been submerged and lost. If the continental shelves of the world that are now underwater were inhabited during periods of lower sea level, and if sophisticated civilizations existed on these continental shelves, evidence of these civilizations would have been largely destroyed by rising seas. Only those artifacts and structures that are sufficiently robust to survive the transition from land to seafloor, and that are preserved under anaerobic conditions underwater, would survive to the present day. The scale of evidence that could be lost is staggering. If the entire continental shelves surrounding the continents were inhabited, a reasonable assumption given that modern humans concentrate in coastal regions, the amount of archaeological evidence that could have been lost to inundation is immense. We would expect only fragments of evidence to survive and be discovered. The fact that underwater archaeological sites have been discovered at all suggests that entire civilizations may have vanished beneath the waves, leaving only minimal traces. Another gap in the archaeological record involves evidence of technological development. The conventional narrative describes a slow, gradual development of technology over millennia: the discovery of fire, the development of tools, the domestication of plants and animals, the invention of agriculture, the development of writing and record-keeping. Yet evidence exists of relatively sudden technological innovations that appear to have no clear antecedents. Pottery, for example, appears relatively suddenly in the archaeological record around 20,000 years ago. Yet ceramic technology is not trivial. It requires understanding of materials, control of temperature, knowledge of proper clay selection and preparation. Where did this technology come from? Had pottery been invented earlier, only to be lost and reinvented? Had pottery been invented in one location and diffused to others? Or does pottery represent knowledge retained and carried through the catastrophe theorized to have occurred at 10,850 BCE, allowing survivors to recreate this technology? Writing appears suddenly around 5,200 years ago in Mesopotamia and Egypt. Yet writing is an extraordinarily complex technology, requiring the abstraction of sound into visual symbols, the systematization of these symbols, and the development of rules for their combination. That such a complex technology appeared simultaneously in multiple locations, Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, China, raises questions about whether writing was independently invented in multiple locations or whether knowledge of writing was transmitted between regions. The Bronze Age appears as a discrete period in history, when bronze tools and weapons suddenly became widespread, replacing earlier copper and stone tools. Yet the technology for producing bronze, the identification of copper and tin deposits, the extraction of these metals, the knowledge of how to combine them in proper proportions, the development of techniques for casting bronze is extraordinarily complex. How did Bronze Age peoples develop this technology? Is there evidence of earlier experimentation with copper? Can the transition from Stone Age to Bronze Age be clearly traced through the archaeological record? In many regions, the transition to agriculture and civilization appears to have occurred without clear evidence of the earlier development of the prerequisites. Seeds suitable for agriculture appear to have been selected, but where was this selection conducted before seeds are grown in the known sites? Animal domestication occurs with what appears to be remarkable suddenness. In some cases, the transition from hunting wild animals to herding domesticated animals appears in the archaeological record without clear evidence of intermediate stages. These gaps and anomalies in the archaeological record raise the possibility that our understanding of history is incomplete. We may be seeing only a portion of human development. Earlier civilizations may have flourished and vanished, leaving minimal evidence. Technologies may have been developed, lost, and reinvented. Knowledge may have been accumulated, catastrophically lost, and slowly recovered. The catastrophic impact hypothesis provides a potential explanation for many of these anomalies. If an advanced civilization existed before 10,850 BCE and was catastrophically disrupted by impact and environmental change, survivors would have had to rebuild from the wreckage of their civilization. Knowledge would have been preserved in fragmented form, passed down through oral tradition. Over centuries and millennia, survivors could have begun to develop new technologies and rebuild civilization. This process of rebuilding might explain the apparent sudden emergence of civilization in the archaeological record. It might represent not the origin of civilization, but rather the recovery of earlier civilization after catastrophic disruption. This interpretation does not require invoking extraordinary technologies or extraterrestrial intervention. It simply requires that we recognize the fragility of civilization and the potential for catastrophic disruption to reset human progress. It recognizes that the geological record contains evidence of catastrophes, impacts, volcanism, rapid climate change that would have had profound impacts on human populations, and it suggests that the true history of human civilization may be far more complex and dramatic than the conventional narrative captured in our history books. Section 8. The evidence of knowledge, astronomy, and mathematics in the ancient world. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence that ancient peoples possessed sophisticated understanding of the world is the evidence of astronomical knowledge. Throughout history and across cultures, ancient peoples demonstrated remarkable understanding of celestial mechanics, the movement of planets and stars, and the cycles of celestial events. This knowledge was encoded in monuments, transmitted through myths and legends, and recorded in ancient texts. The precision of astronomical alignments in ancient structures is remarkable. Stonehenge aligns to the summer and winter solstices. The temples of Egypt align to the rising of specific stars. Mesoamerican pyramids align to celestial events. Angkor Wat in Cambodia appears to be aligned to the position of the constellation Draco as it appeared in the sky thousands of years ago. These alignments could not have been created by accident. They represent intentional design based on observation and calculation. How did ancient peoples acquire this astronomical knowledge? Developing an understanding of astronomy requires sustained observation of the night sky over extended periods, decades at minimum, preferably centuries. It requires recording observations systematically, recognizing patterns in the movements of celestial objects, and developing predictive models. This is a sophisticated intellectual endeavor, requiring mathematical ability and scientific methodology. Yet the evidence suggests that ancient peoples not only possessed this knowledge, but used it to construct monuments and guide their societies. The Mayan civilization of Mesoamerica possessed astronomical knowledge so sophisticated that their astronomical calculations were more accurate than those of contemporary European astronomers. The Mayan calendar included multiple interlocking cycles, a 260-day ritual calendar, a 365-day solar calendar, and longer cycles spanning thousands of years. The precision of these calculations indicates extraordinary observational skill and mathematical sophistication. The alignment of monuments to celestial events suggests that ancient peoples attached profound religious or cosmological significance to these events. The moment of the summer solstice, when the sun reaches the northernmost point of its annual arc, may have been viewed as a moment of cosmic significance, the turning point in the annual cycle. Monuments constructed to mark this moment would serve religious functions, allowing people to gather and conduct ceremonies synchronized with the cosmic calendar. The mathematical sophistication of ancient peoples is equally remarkable. The Egyptians understood geometry sufficiently to construct the pyramids with extraordinary precision. The Pythagorean theorem, the relationship between the sides of right triangles, appears to have been understood and used by multiple ancient civilizations, including the Egyptians and the peoples of ancient India. The geometry of the flower of life, a pattern of overlapping circles, appears in artistic traditions across cultures and in multiple ancient religions, suggesting that the mathematical principles underlying this pattern were understood and considered cosmically significant. The Mayan mathematical system was extraordinarily sophisticated. The Mayans used a base 20 number system, in contrast to the base 10 system used in most modern cultures, and possessed a concept of zero, a mathematical innovation that was developed independently by only a few ancient civilizations. The use of zero allowed the Mayans to develop a positional notation system, enabling calculations of extraordinary complexity and accuracy. The evidence of mathematical knowledge in ancient civilizations raises intriguing questions. Where did this knowledge come from? How did ancient peoples develop such sophisticated understanding of mathematics and geometry? Mathematical knowledge is abstract, not directly observable in nature. Developing mathematical concepts requires intellectual abstraction and systematic reasoning. The fact that multiple civilizations independently developed similar mathematical concepts suggests either independent invention or transmission of knowledge between civilizations. The transmission of knowledge between ancient civilizations is a topic of considerable scholarly debate. Mainstream archaeology tends to assume that major innovations were developed independently in different civilizations. However, evidence of contact and trade between distant civilizations is mounting. The movement of technologies, ideas, and cultural practices along trade routes is well documented in the historical period. It is plausible that such transmission occurred in prehistory as well. The evidence of astronomical and mathematical knowledge in ancient civilizations suggests a level of intellectual sophistication that challenges conventional assumptions about the capabilities of ancient peoples. If ancient peoples possessed such sophisticated knowledge, what other sophisticated knowledge might they have possessed? What other technologies or understanding might have been lost or remain undiscovered? End of Part 1. 15,000 words. This concludes Part 1 of the comprehensive 2-hour documentary narration on ancient mysteries and hidden worlds. The narrative has covered the catastrophic history of our planet, the remarkable discoveries at Göbekli Tepe, the revelations of LiDAR technology in the Amazon, submerged civilizations beneath the world's oceans, geological anomalies that challenge our perceptions, ancient engineering achievements that defy conventional explanation, gaps in the archaeological record that suggest lost civilizations, and evidence of sophisticated astronomical and mathematical knowledge in the ancient world. Part 2 will continue with additional sections exploring underwater monuments, volcanic civilizations, modern underground engineering marvels, and deeper investigations into the implications of these discoveries for our understanding of human history and our place in the cosmos. Section 9. The monuments beneath the waves' deeper mysteries. The underwater world continues to reveal secrets that challenge our understanding of human history and the extent of ancient civilizations. Beyond the sites already discussed, numerous underwater monuments and structures scattered across the world's oceans testify to the reality that vast regions now submerged beneath the waves were once habitable lands where humans lived, built, and flourished. The continental shelves surrounding every continent were exposed during periods of lower sea level. These exposed shelves would have been among the most productive and desirable lands for human habitation. They would have been characterized by diverse ecosystems, abundant food resources from both terrestrial hunting and marine fishing, and generally moderate climates compared to inland regions further from ocean regulation. The most advanced civilizations of any period in history have consistently chosen to locate near coastlines and major water bodies. It is therefore entirely reasonable to expect that advanced civilizations existed on continental shelves during periods when these areas were above sea level. The process of rising seas at the end of the last glacial period would have been catastrophic for populations living on continental shelves. Unlike modern sea level rise, which occurs gradually over decades, the post-glacial sea level rise was far more rapid. In some regions and during certain periods, sea levels rose by several meters per century. Coastal populations would have experienced the steady encroachment of the sea, forcing migration inland generation after generation. Eventually, however, the rise would have slowed and stabilized at current levels, leaving behind submerged landscapes that preserve, in some cases, remarkable evidence of human activity. In the Mediterranean region, underwater surveys have revealed multiple submerged settlements beyond Pavlopetri. Off the coast of Israel, underwater archaeological sites show evidence of human occupation during periods when sea levels were lower. The Mediterranean Sea, despite being an ancient center of civilization, has submerged multiple settlements of the classical and pre-classical periods. When the Romans constructed ports and harbors, many of these structures have since been partially submerged, as local sea levels have risen due to a combination of global sea level change and local subsidence of the land. These submerged harbors and structures provide evidence not only of when they were constructed, but also of the extent of ancient maritime activity. The Romans engineered concrete structures that have survived underwater for 2 millennia, demonstrating remarkable durability and engineering skill. The preservation of these structures underwater provides archaeologists with opportunities to study Roman engineering, commerce, and daily life in exquisite detail. In the Caribbean and off the coasts of Central and South America, underwater surveys have revealed evidence of pre-Columbian settlements. Structures in the waters off Belize, the Yucatan Peninsula, and other locations suggest that Maya and other Mesoamerican civilizations extended into regions now submerged. The Mesoamerican civilizations were sophisticated maritime traders, navigating the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico in canoes and trading vessels. Evidence of underwater structures and artifacts from these civilizations provides additional confirmation of their maritime sophistication. The Indian Ocean region contains numerous underwater sites that remain largely unexplored. The coasts of East Africa, the Arabian Peninsula, India, and Southeast Asia all have continental shelves that were exposed during periods of lower sea level. These regions were centers of maritime trade and civilization. The monsoon winds of the Indian Ocean created a predictable pattern that facilitated maritime trade between Africa, Arabia, India, and Southeast Asia. Advanced civilizations recognized the value of this trade and established trading posts and settlements along these routes. Many of these settlements are now submerged. Off the coast of Oman, underwater surveys have revealed what appears to be an ancient city or trading post. The structures visible on the seafloor include what appear to be building foundations, walls, and other architectural features. If these are indeed the remains of human settlements, they would represent evidence of sophisticated maritime civilization in the Indian Ocean region during a period when sea levels were lower. The discovery of underwater structures raises fascinating questions about the technology and knowledge of ancient maritime peoples. What navigation methods did they use? How did they traverse open ocean without modern instruments? What routes did they follow? How extensive was their maritime trade? Archaeological evidence from coastal sites suggests that ancient peoples possessed more sophisticated maritime capabilities than conventional understanding suggests. Evidence of long-distance trade in materials originating from distant sources indicates that maritime networks existed connecting distant regions. The underwater sites also preserve evidence of the catastrophic impact of rising seas on human populations. If the rise in sea levels was relatively gradual, we would expect to find evidence of adaptation, structures modified to accommodate rising water, migrations that occurred over extended periods. But if the rise was rapid or was accelerated by catastrophic events, we would expect to find evidence of abandonment and disruption. Some underwater sites show evidence of sudden abandonment, with artifacts and structures left in place, suggesting flight rather than orderly migration. One particularly intriguing body of water is the Black Sea. Geological evidence suggests that the Black Sea underwent a dramatic transformation approximately 9,500 years ago. Prior to this transformation, the Black Sea was a freshwater lake, isolated from the Mediterranean by a high land bridge in the region of the modern Bosphorus Strait. Around 9,500 years ago, sea level rise in the Mediterranean caused water to spill over the land bridge, initiating a catastrophic inundation of the Black Sea basin. The freshwater lake was transformed into a saltwater sea as Mediterranean waters flooded in. This process would have taken years or decades rather than occurring instantaneously, but it would have been catastrophic for any populations living around the Black Sea. Archaeological surveys of the Black Sea floor have revealed what appears to be an ancient settlement beneath the waters. The site, discovered by underwater explorer Robert Ballard, contains what appear to be house structures and other buildings, all preserved at considerable depth beneath the Black Sea's surface. The discovery suggests that advanced settlements existed around the Black Sea during a period when it was a freshwater lake. The catastrophic transformation of the Black Sea into a saltwater sea would have been a cataclysmic event for populations living around its shores, an event potentially preserved in the mythological traditions of peoples whose ancestors lived through it. The story of the Black Sea transformation provides a specific example of how geographic transformation could create the catastrophic conditions described in flood myths. A freshwater lake supporting thriving settlements suddenly becomes a saltwater sea, displacing populations and destroying agricultural lands. Survivors migrating away from the devastated region would carry with them memories of the catastrophe. These memories, preserved in oral tradition and eventually written down, could become the foundation of flood myths that are modified and elaborated over generations. Could the global flood myths found in cultures around the world be distant echoes of specific regional catastrophes that were experienced by ancestors of multiple populations? The Black Sea catastrophe is one such event. The rising seas that inundated continental shelves is another. The catastrophic impact theorized to have occurred around 10,850 BCE might be a third. Multiple catastrophic events occurring at different times and in different places could each have generated flood myths that were preserved as each culture's populations migrated and their oral traditions became increasingly elaborate and generalized. The underwater sites also provide evidence of the technological capabilities of ancient peoples. The construction of structures in coastal regions demonstrates that ancient peoples were capable of engineering projects of considerable complexity. The management of water and the construction of ports and harbors required sophisticated understanding of hydrology and engineering. The creation of structures capable of surviving submersion and the degradation of the marine environment demonstrates durability and material sophistication. Section 10. The deep history of human civilization. Multiple rises and falls when we examine all the evidence. The archaeological anomalies, the submerged sites, the mythological references to catastrophe, the geological evidence of impact and rapid sea level change, the sophisticated knowledge demonstrated by ancient peoples. A picture emerges of a human history far more complex and dramatic than conventional chronologies suggest. Rather than a linear progression from primitive hunter-gatherers to agricultural societies to civilizations, the true history of human civilization may be characterized by cycles of advancement and regression, periods of sophistication interrupted by catastrophic disruption, recovery, and rebuilding. This pattern, what might be called a cyclical model of civilization, provides a framework for understanding the apparent anomalies in the archaeological record. In this cyclical model, advanced civilizations develop during periods of relatively stable climate and geology. These civilizations may exist for centuries or millennia, accumulating knowledge, developing technologies, constructing monuments, and extending their influence across vast distances. However, these civilizations remain vulnerable to catastrophic disruption, impacts from space, volcanic eruptions, rapid climate change, or other natural disasters. When catastrophic disruption occurs, the effects are devastating. Advanced civilizations are more vulnerable to disruption than primitive societies because they depend on complex systems, trade networks, agricultural systems dependent on specific climate conditions, organizational hierarchies, stored knowledge. The disruption of any of these systems can cascade, causing the collapse of the entire civilization. Populations are decimated, knowledge is lost. Survivors are reduced to struggling for basic survival in a transformed world. Over generations, survivors rebuild. They develop new agricultural systems suited to the changed climate. They reconstruct organizational structures. They gradually accumulate knowledge and technological capability. Eventually, new civilizations emerge, not necessarily remembering or understanding the advanced civilizations that preceded them. Isolated populations, separated by geography and time, develop independently, sometimes arriving at similar solutions to similar problems, sometimes developing in entirely different directions. This cyclical model provides a framework for understanding several puzzling aspects of human history. First, it explains the apparent sudden emergence of civilization in the archaeological record. What appears to be the birth of civilization may actually be the recovery of civilization after catastrophic disruption. The apparent gaps in the archaeological record may represent not the absence of human civilization, but rather the destruction of evidence or the occupation of regions now submerged. Second, the cyclical model explains the similarities between civilizations that are supposedly independent. The fact that agriculture was developed independently in multiple regions may actually represent the recovery of agricultural knowledge by different populations, all of whom had previously been civilized but had lost that knowledge. The fact that writing emerged in multiple civilizations may represent the recovery of writing technology rather than its independent invention. Third, the cyclical model explains the evidence of sophisticated knowledge in ancient civilizations. The astronomical knowledge demonstrated by the Mayans, the mathematical sophistication of multiple ancient cultures, the engineering capabilities displayed in monumental architecture, all of these can be understood as the recovery of knowledge possessed by earlier civilizations, preserved in fragmented form through oral tradition, myths, and careful teaching. Fourth, the cyclical model explains the global prevalence of flood myths and catastrophe myths. These myths are not merely imaginative stories or metaphorical descriptions of cultural change. They are, at least in part, preserved memories of actual catastrophic events: the rising seas at the end of the last ice age, the Black Sea catastrophe, the potential impact around 10,850 BCE, or other catastrophic events that disrupted human civilizations. The evidence for this cyclical model is not definitive, and many scholars reject it as speculative. However, the alternative, that the anomalies in the archaeological record and the evidence of sophisticated knowledge are simply mistakes or misinterpretations, requires us to explain away considerable evidence. The cyclical model, while requiring us to expand our understanding of human history, provides a framework that integrates multiple lines of evidence into a coherent narrative. If this model is correct, it has profound implications for understanding human history. It means that the conventional periodization of human history, Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and so forth, describes only the most recent cycle of civilization. Earlier cycles may have been more advanced, possessing technologies and knowledge subsequently lost. The inhabitants of these earlier cycles may have achieved greater sophistication in some domains than we assume possible for ancient peoples. It also means that the future of human civilization is not guaranteed. The cyclical model applied to the present suggests that advanced civilization remains vulnerable to catastrophic disruption. The risks of impact from space, major volcanic eruptions, rapid climate change, and other natural disasters remain. While modern technology provides capabilities for detection and mitigation of some of these risks, human civilization remains dependent on complex systems vulnerable to disruption. The preservation of knowledge, the development of resilience in our food and energy systems, and the reduction of our vulnerability to catastrophic disruption are critical challenges facing modern civilization. Section 11, Modern Underworld Engineering: The Hidden Infrastructure of Contemporary Civilization. While much of this documentary has focused on ancient mysteries and lost civilizations, it is instructive to examine how modern civilization constructs monumental structures and creates infrastructure on scales comparable to ancient achievements. Modern engineering provides perspective on what is possible with technology and organization, and suggests that ancient peoples with adequate knowledge and organization could have accomplished similar feats. The Sydney Opera House, one of the most iconic structures of the modern world, is remarkable not only for its above-ground architecture, but also for the engineering accomplished beneath the surface. The construction of the Opera House required the creation of an underground parking structure of staggering complexity. The parking facility was engineered with a massive double-helix ramp system that allows vehicles to descend to parking levels below the building. The engineering required to create such a structure in the challenging geology surrounding Sydney Harbour is remarkable. The construction of underground parking, subway systems, and other subsurface infrastructure in modern cities demonstrates the significant effort and engineering expertise required to modify the landscape beneath our feet. The Tokyo Metro, one of the world's most extensive subway systems, required the excavation of millions of cubic meters of earth and rock, the construction of tunnels with precise alignment, the management of water intrusion, and the installation of sophisticated drainage and ventilation systems. The engineering of such systems required not only technological capability, but also organizational structure capable of managing projects of enormous complexity over extended periods. Modern tunneling technology has advanced to the point where tunnels can be constructed with extraordinary precision. Modern tunnel boring machines can create tunnels of precise diameter and alignment, with deviation from intended routes of only centimeters over distances of kilometers. This precision is achieved through continuous measurement and adjustment, through the use of surveying instruments of extraordinary accuracy, and through sophisticated engineering calculations. Yet this technology, which modern people take for granted, would have been unimaginable to ancient peoples. Without modern surveying instruments, without mechanized excavation equipment, without modern materials for shoring and support, how would ancient peoples have constructed underground structures? They would have faced the same challenges that modern engineers face: the need to manage water intrusion, the need to support the weight of overlying earth and rock, the need to maintain ventilation, the need to prevent collapse. Some ancient structures suggest that ancient peoples did solve these engineering challenges. Underground temples in Egypt, carved from bedrock, demonstrate sophisticated understanding of structure and stability. Underground aqueducts in Rome transported water across vast distances through carefully engineered tunnels. The Qanats of Persia, underground water channels constructed to transport water from mountain regions to agricultural land, demonstrate sophisticated understanding of hydraulics and engineering. These structures were not simple excavations, but carefully engineered systems demonstrating significant technical knowledge. The fact that modern engineering faces similar challenges to those that ancient engineers would have faced, and that modern engineers sometimes fail despite their superior technology, gives perspective on the sophistication of ancient engineering achievements. When modern engineers construct underground structures, they face the same fundamental challenges: managing water, supporting weight, ensuring stability, providing ventilation. Ancient engineers, without modern technology, faced identical challenges yet still produced structures that have survived millennia. This suggests that ancient engineering knowledge, while different from modern engineering, was sophisticated and effective. Ancient peoples understood principles of mechanics, stress distribution, and material properties. They understood how to survey and measure with sufficient accuracy to achieve their engineering goals. They understood how to organize labor and manage complex projects. The tools they used were simple, but the knowledge they possessed was sophisticated. Section 12, Volcanic Civilizations: Life in the Shadow of Fire. One of the most dramatic examples of human resilience and adaptation to difficult environments is the story of civilizations that have developed in volcanic regions. Living in the shadow of active volcanoes presents extreme dangers: the risk of eruption, the production of toxic gases, the contamination of water and soil with volcanic minerals. Yet civilizations have consistently chosen to settle in volcanic regions, attracted by the fertility of volcanic soils and the abundance of geothermal resources. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE provides one of history's most dramatic examples of volcanic catastrophe affecting human civilization. The eruption destroyed the cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum, killing thousands of residents in moments as pyroclastic flows, superheated clouds of gas and ash, swept down the mountainside at speeds exceeding 100 kilometers per hour. The temperatures of these pyroclastic flows were sufficient to vaporize water and incinerate organic material. Residents of Pompeii were killed instantly, their bodies preserved in the exact positions they occupied at the moment of death as the volcanic ash hardened around them, creating molds that have preserved remarkable detail of their appearance and posture. The excavation of Pompeii has provided archaeologists with an extraordinarily detailed view of Roman life. The preservation of buildings, artifacts, food, and human remains in the exact state they were at the moment of eruption has allowed scholars to understand daily life in a Roman city as completely as any archaeological site on Earth. The details preserved at Pompeii, the furniture, the food, the graffiti on walls, the art on display, give us insights into the lives of ordinary Romans that written records would never provide. However, the eruption of Vesuvius was catastrophic for the populations living around the volcano. Thousands died, cities were destroyed, the landscape was transformed. The eruption demonstrates the extreme danger posed by active volcanoes and the devastating consequences when they erupt. Yet despite these dangers, human populations have consistently resettled volcanic regions after eruptions. the slopes of volcanoes are among the most fertile agricultural lands on Earth. The volcanic ash and lava, as they weather and break down, create soil rich in minerals essential for plant growth. Crops grown in volcanic soils often achieve yields superior to those grown in other soils. This agricultural fertility has consistently attracted human populations, despite the risks. The Montserrat eruption of 1995-1997 provides a contemporary example of volcanic catastrophe affecting human populations. The Soufriere Hills volcano on the island of Montserrat in the Caribbean began erupting in 1995 after centuries of dormancy. The eruption destroyed the capital city of Plymouth and devastated the southern portion of the island. Approximately two-thirds of the population was displaced, forced to abandon their homes and evacuate to the northern part of the island or to neighboring islands. The Montserrat eruption has been called the Pompeii of the Caribbean because of the destruction of the city and the displacement of populations. The eruption demonstrates how vulnerable modern populations remain to natural disasters. Despite scientific monitoring and prediction capabilities, despite advanced technology, modern populations living near volcanoes remain at risk of catastrophic disruption. The evacuation of Montserrat residents prevented a repeat of Pompeii, where thousands of people were killed by sudden eruption. However, the economic and social disruption caused by the eruption and displacement was profound. Aogashima, an island in Japan located south of Tokyo, provides another example of human adaptation to volcanic environments. The island is a volcanic caldera, the crater of an ancient volcano that has partially collapsed inward, creating a sunken basin surrounded by steep cliffs. The interior of the caldera contains geothermal activity, with hot springs and steaming vents. The summit of the island rises approximately 430 meters above sea level. Despite the extreme geological hazards in the remote location, Aogashima maintains a small permanent population of several hundred people. The residents of Aogashima are resilient, adapted to living in an environment of extreme beauty and extreme danger. The geothermal resources of the island provide hot water for bathing and heating. The volcanic soil supports agriculture. The isolation of the island has preserved a unique culture and community that traces its history back centuries. The existence of thriving communities in volcanic regions demonstrates human resilience and adaptability. Humans recognize the benefits of volcanic regions, fertile soil, geothermal resources, unique ecosystems, and weigh these benefits against the risks. In many cases, the benefits have outweighed the risks, leading to sustained settlement despite periodic volcanic catastrophes. This pattern, sustained settlement in dangerous environments due to resource abundance, may provide insight into settlement patterns in the ancient world. If volcanic regions offered superior agricultural productivity or other resource advantages, ancient civilizations would have settled in these regions despite the volcanic risks. The evidence of settlements in volcanic regions, disrupted by periodic eruptions, would be scattered through the archaeological record. Some settlements would be preserved in exceptional detail, like Pompeii, by being buried in volcanic ash. Others would be destroyed and abandoned, leaving minimal evidence. The volcanic regions of Mexico and Central America hosted the great civilizations of Mesoamerica, the Olmec, Maya, and Aztec peoples. These civilizations developed in regions of active and recently active volcanism. The volcanic soils of the region supported the agriculture that sustained these populations. The civilizations that developed in these regions achieved remarkable sophistication in mathematics, astronomy, architecture, and art. The volcanic environment, while dangerous, supported sophisticated civilization. The resilience of human populations living in volcanic regions speaks to a broader human capacity to adapt to difficult and dangerous environments. Throughout history, humans have settled in locations of extreme climate, extreme geography, and extreme geological hazard. The survival and flourishing of populations in these environments testifies to human ingenuity, adaptability, and determination. Section 13. The Mysteries of Astronomical Alignment and Cosmic Consciousness. The evidence of astronomical knowledge in ancient civilizations extends beyond simple observation to suggest a sophisticated understanding of celestial mechanics and a profound integration of astronomical knowledge into religion, culture, and daily life. The alignment of monuments to celestial events suggests not merely practical concerns with determining seasons and organizing calendars, but a deeper spiritual and philosophical understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos. The concept of the precession of the equinoxes, the slow wobble of the Earth's axis that causes the position of stars to shift over very long periods, requires sophisticated observation and mathematical calculation to recognize and measure. The precession cycle takes approximately 26,000 years to complete. Observation of the gradual shift in the position of stars would require continuous observations over centuries. Yet some ancient texts appear to reference the precession of the equinoxes, suggesting that ancient astronomers may have possessed knowledge of this phenomenon. The Hindu cosmological texts describe vast cosmic cycles, with the universe going through periods of creation, maintenance, and dissolution. These cycles are measured in extraordinarily large numbers of years, numbers that approximate within a factor of 2, the modern scientific estimate of the age of the universe. How did ancient Hindu philosophers arrive at these numbers? Did they possess knowledge transmitted from earlier astronomical observations, or is the correlation with modern scientific estimates merely coincidence? The Mayan long count calendar tracked cycles of time spanning hundreds of thousands of years. The Mayans appear to have been concerned with extremely long-term cycles of cosmic time. The calendar included multiple overlapping cycles: the sacred 260-day calendar, the solar 365-day calendar, a 52-year cycle, and longer cycles. The long count itself measured time in baktuns, with each baktun representing 144,000 days. The system allowed for the tracking of dates over periods of millions of years. Why would the Mayans have developed a calendar system capable of tracking time over such vast periods? What purpose did such a calendar serve? One possibility is that the Mayans were concerned with tracking the precession of the equinoxes, the slow wobble of Earth's axis. The precession cycle spans approximately 26,000 years, fitting neatly into the Mayan cosmological framework. If the Mayans possessed knowledge of the precession cycle, they would have needed a calendar system capable of tracking such long periods. Another possibility is that the Mayans were concerned with tracking cycles of cosmic cataclysm, periods when the Earth would be disrupted by cosmic or geological events. The long count calendar measures time from a mythological date, approximately 3114 BCE. What was significant about this date? Some scholars have speculated that this date represents the recovery from an earlier catastrophe, the beginning of a new age after the end of a previous age. The cyclical cosmology of the Mayans, with repeated ages of creation and destruction, may reflect historical memory of earlier catastrophic events. The alignment of the Great Pyramid of Giza to true north is extraordinarily precise. Modern surveying instruments find it difficult to achieve greater accuracy. The fact that this alignment was achieved approximately 4,500 years ago, before the development of surveying instruments, raises questions about how the alignment was achieved. The process of aligning a massive structure to true north, using only the tools and knowledge available in ancient Egypt, would have required sophisticated understanding of astronomy and surveying. The most likely method would have involved using the rotation of stars around the north celestial pole to determine true north. The use of stars to determine true north is not simple. The north celestial pole, the point around which the visible stars rotate, does not coincide with any bright star currently. Modern navigators use Polaris, the North Star, for navigation, but Polaris was not aligned with the north celestial pole in ancient times due to precession. The ancient Egyptians would have had to use a different method, observing the rotation of several stars and calculating the center of their rotation. The sophistication required to achieve this suggests that Egyptian astronomers understood celestial mechanics at a level that conventional archaeology tends not to attribute to them. The ability to determine true north with precision through astronomical observation requires not merely observation, but also calculation and understanding. This is not a trivial achievement. The astronomical knowledge of ancient civilizations suggests a broader integration of celestial observation into culture and religion. The alignment of temples and monuments to celestial events would have served religious functions, allowing populations to gather at moments of cosmic significance, to conduct ceremonies synchronized with the celestial calendar, and to reinforce the belief that human civilization was connected to and governed by cosmic forces. This integration of astronomy into religion and culture has profound implications. It suggests that ancient peoples did not view themselves as separate from the cosmos, but as integral parts of a larger cosmic order. The movements of celestial bodies were not merely navigational references, but held profound spiritual and philosophical significance. The universe was not random and chaotic, but ordered according to mathematical and cosmic principles. This cosmic consciousness, the understanding that humans are part of a larger cosmos ordered according to mathematical principles, appears to have been a fundamental aspect of ancient civilizations. Whether this perspective emerged independently in multiple civilizations or was transmitted across cultures, it represents a remarkable insight into the nature of reality and humanity's place within it. Section 14. The implications for modern understanding. The discoveries and evidence presented throughout this documentary have profound implications for how we understand human history, human capabilities, and the nature of civilization. These implications challenge conventional narratives and invite us to reconsider fundamental assumptions about human development, cultural transmission, and the vulnerability of civilization. First, the evidence suggests that human civilization is far more ancient and far more subject to disruption than conventional chronologies indicate. Rather than beginning approximately 6,000 years ago with the development of agriculture and writing, human civilization may extend back at least 12,000 years, and possibly much further. The emergence of sophisticated religious architecture at Göbekli, Tepe approximately 12,000 years ago suggests that human organizational capacity and religious understanding developed long before the emergence of agriculture and permanent settlement. Second, the evidence suggests that catastrophic events, impacts from space, volcanic eruptions, rapid climate change, or other natural disasters, have repeatedly disrupted human civilization and caused the loss of knowledge and technological capability. The catastrophic impact, theorized to have occurred around 10,850 BCE, may have reset human progress, reducing advanced civilizations to struggling populations in a transformed world. The rising seas at the end of the last ice age may have inundated the continental shelves where the most advanced civilizations had developed, destroying evidence and displacing populations. Third, the evidence suggests that ancient peoples possessed more sophisticated understanding of mathematics, astronomy, engineering, and other domains of knowledge than conventional archaeology typically acknowledges. The astronomical knowledge demonstrated by the Mayans, the mathematical sophistication of multiple ancient cultures, the precision of ancient engineering, all suggest that ancient peoples possessed understanding equal in sophistication, if not in the same domains, to modern knowledge. Fourth, the evidence suggests that global flood myths and catastrophe myths may preserve historical memory of actual catastrophic events. Rather than purely imaginative creations, these myths may represent the transmission, across generations, of memories of real disruptions and disasters experienced by ancestors. The consistency of flood myths across cultures separated by vast distances suggests that either multiple catastrophic flood events occurred affecting different regions, or that populations migrating from regions affected by catastrophic events carried the memory of these events with them. Fifth, the evidence suggests that knowledge transmission between ancient civilizations may have been more extensive than conventional archaeology assumes. The similarities between civilizations that are supposedly independent in astronomy, mathematics, agriculture, and other domains may reflect transmission of knowledge rather than independent invention. Trade networks, migrations, and cultural contact may have allowed knowledge to spread across vast distances in the ancient world. These implications challenge conventional understanding and invite us to reconsider historical narratives. However, they do not require us to invoke extraordinary explanations or reject scientific methodology. Instead, they require us to recognize the fragility of civilization, the reality of catastrophic disruption, and the sophistication of ancient peoples. They require us to be humble about what we know and what remains unknown about human history. The implications also have relevance for understanding modern civilization and the challenges it faces. If human civilization remains vulnerable to catastrophic disruption from impacts, volcanoes, or climate change, then modern civilization must develop resilience and mitigation strategies for these risks. The study of ancient civilizations that were disrupted and recovered can provide insights into how modern civilization might respond to and recover from catastrophic disruption. Section 15. The future of archaeological discovery. The technological advances enabling new discoveries in archaeology are expanding at an accelerating pace. LiDAR technology is becoming increasingly sophisticated and more widely deployed. Underwater archaeology is advancing, with improved diving technologies and submersibles allowing archaeologists to explore deeper and more remote underwater sites. Ground-penetrating radar is allowing archaeologists to detect subsurface structures without excavation. Genetic analysis is providing new perspectives on ancient populations and their migrations. these technologies will undoubtedly reveal additional archaeological sites and evidence that will challenge conventional understanding. The underwater sites of the continental shelves remain largely unexplored. Vast regions of the world, tropical rainforests, deserts, and mountain regions, contain archaeological sites that have not yet been discovered. As technology improves and as more archaeologists apply these new tools, the hidden history of human civilization will be progressively revealed. The discoveries discussed in this documentary, Göbekli Tepe, the LiDAR revealed settlements of the Amazon, the underwater sites scattered across the world's oceans, are just the beginning. These discoveries have already challenged conventional chronologies and forced reconsideration of assumptions about human capabilities and history. Future discoveries will undoubtedly continue this process of expanding and revising our understanding. One particularly promising frontier is the exploration of underwater sites on continental shelves. Modern submersible technology allows researchers to explore sites at depths previously inaccessible. Systematic surveys of continental shelves using remotely operated vehicles and autonomous underwater vehicles could reveal vast numbers of submerged settlements and structures. The continental shelves surrounding Europe, Africa, and Asia were all above water during periods of lower sea level and would have been preferred settlement locations for ancient peoples. The potential for archaeological discovery in these regions is enormous. Another frontier is the use of ancient DNA analysis to understand the movements and interactions of ancient populations. DNA recovered from ancient human remains can reveal relationships between populations, trace migrations, and identify periods of interbreeding between distinct populations. This genetic evidence can be compared with archaeological evidence to gain a more complete picture of human prehistory. The application of astronomical knowledge to understanding ancient monuments is also an active frontier. As our understanding of ancient astronomy improves, we may be able to determine more precisely when monuments were constructed by identifying the specific astronomical configurations they were designed to capture. This can help refine chronologies and identify contemporaneous construction across distant regions. The study of ancient climate through paleoclimatology provides another avenue for understanding the context in which ancient civilizations developed and were disrupted. Ice cores, sediment cores, and other geological records preserve detailed information about climate variations over thousands of years. By understanding when major climate shifts occurred, we can correlate these shifts with archaeological evidence of cultural change, migration, and collapse. Section 16, The Challenge to Mainstream Academia. The evidence and theories presented in this documentary represent challenges to mainstream archaeological and historical understanding. Mainstream scholars tend to view these alternative theories with skepticism or rejection. This reaction is, in many ways, appropriate. Scientific progress requires skepticism and careful evaluation of evidence. However, the dismissal of evidence simply because it contradicts conventional understanding can also impede scientific progress. Throughout the history of science, theories that initially seemed radical or impossible have eventually been accepted when sufficient evidence accumulated. The idea that continents could move seemed impossible until the theory of plate tectonics provided a mechanism for continental movement and accumulated overwhelming evidence in its support. The idea that large impacts from space had affected Earth's climate and life seemed impossible until geological evidence of ancient impacts was discovered. The idea that the Amazon was a landscape engineered by human populations seemed impossible until LiDAR technology revealed the evidence. The challenge to mainstream academia is to remain open to evidence that contradicts conventional understanding while maintaining rigorous standards for evaluation of evidence. This balance is difficult to achieve. Skepticism can prevent acceptance of speculative theories without adequate support, but excessive skepticism can prevent recognition of evidence that challenges established narratives. The controversy surrounding archaeological sites like Göbekli Tepe and the LiDAR discoveries in the Amazon shows this balance in action. Initially, mainstream archaeologists were skeptical of these discoveries, viewing them as anomalous or misinterpreted. However, as more evidence accumulated and as more archaeologists engaged with the sites, the evidence became undeniable. Conventional chronologies have been revised to accommodate these discoveries. Similar controversies surround more speculative theories, the existence of submerged civilizations, the reality of catastrophic impacts disrupting ancient civilizations, the transmission of knowledge between distant ancient civilizations. These theories lack the overwhelming evidence that supports sites like Göbekli Tepe. yet they merit serious investigation rather than automatic dismissal. The application of new technology to archaeological questions can provide the evidence needed to evaluate these theories. Underwater surveys of continental shelves can reveal whether submerged settlements exist in greater numbers than currently known. Genetic analysis can reveal whether populations in distant regions show evidence of contact or common ancestry. Climate reconstructions can reveal whether catastrophic climate changes occurred at times consistent with the collapse of ancient civilizations. Astronomical analysis can reveal whether ancient monuments were precisely aligned to celestial events in ways that would require sophisticated knowledge. Section 17. Implications for human consciousness and spiritual understanding. Beyond the historical and archaeological implications, the evidence of sophisticated ancient civilizations has implications for our understanding of human consciousness and spiritual understanding. The sophisticated religious architecture of Göbekli Tepe, the astronomical knowledge encoded in monuments across the world, the mathematical sophistication embedded in ancient designs, all suggest that ancient peoples possessed not merely practical knowledge, but also sophisticated spiritual and philosophical understanding. The construction of monuments aligned to celestial events suggests a consciousness of humanity's place in a cosmos ordered according to mathematical principles. The integration of astronomy into religion suggests a view of the universe as sacred, governed by divine principles. The development of sophisticated calendars tracking vast cycles of time suggests a consciousness concerned with long-term cycles and the possibility of recurring transformation. This consciousness appears to have been fundamentally different from the consciousness of modern industrial civilization. Where modern consciousness tends to view the world as material and governed by physical laws independent of human perception, ancient consciousness appears to have viewed the world as sacred and governed by divine principles. Where modern consciousness tends to see humanity as separate from and dominant over nature, ancient consciousness appears to have seen humanity as integrated within a larger cosmic order. This different consciousness does not suggest that ancient people were less intelligent than moderns. Rather, it suggests that consciousness, the way humans perceive and interpret reality, is culturally shaped and historically contingent. Different civilizations, facing different environmental and social circumstances, develop different ways of understanding and relating to the world. The recovery of understanding about ancient consciousness and ancient ways of knowing the world has value beyond historical and archaeological interest. As modern civilization faces challenges related to environmental degradation, climate change, and social disruption, ancient perspectives on humanity's relationship to nature and the cosmos may offer valuable insights. The understanding that humans are part of a larger cosmic order, that our actions affect and are affected by natural and cosmic forces, and that civilization remains vulnerable to disruption are lessons that ancient civilizations learned through experience and that modern civilization needs to relearn. Section 18. The preservation of knowledge and the resilience of civilization. One of the central lessons of the cyclical model of civilization is the vulnerability of knowledge to loss. Civilizations that are disrupted catastrophically lose the knowledge held by those who died in the disruption. Knowledge preserved only in the minds of individuals, not recorded in permanent form, is lost when those individuals die. Even knowledge recorded in written form can be lost if the writing materials decay, if the ability to read the writing is lost, or if the locations where the knowledge was recorded are destroyed. The preservation of knowledge against the risk of loss has profound implications for modern civilization. Modern civilization has concentrated knowledge in specialized domains, science, engineering, history, medicine, with knowledge held by specialists and often recorded only in technical or academic publications. The loss of modern civilization due to catastrophic disruption would result in the loss of vast amounts of knowledge. However, modern civilization also has mechanisms for the preservation of knowledge that ancient civilizations lacked. Knowledge is recorded in multiple formats: books, digital files, databases. Knowledge is preserved in multiple locations: libraries, universities, archives. Knowledge is transmitted through formal educational systems, ensuring that the knowledge base is continuously refreshed and updated. These mechanisms provide some resilience against loss of knowledge. However, the fragility of modern knowledge systems must not be underestimated. Digital files depend on technology to access them. If the technology infrastructure that supports digital systems were disrupted, vast amounts of knowledge stored digitally would become inaccessible. The concentration of knowledge in highly specialized forms means that if specialists with the knowledge were lost, the ability to recover or utilize the knowledge might be impaired. The vulnerability of supply chains and economic systems to disruption means that the knowledge and skills required to maintain modern civilization could be lost if those systems collapsed. The study of ancient civilizations and how they preserved knowledge through catastrophic disruption and recovery provides lessons relevant to modern civilization. The use of multiple methods to encode knowledge, written text, artistic representation, oral transmission, practical demonstration, provides redundancy and increases the likelihood that knowledge survives. The preservation of knowledge in forms accessible to broad populations, not merely specialists, increases the resilience of the knowledge. The teaching of fundamental principles, not merely technical details, allows knowledge to be reconstructed even if specific information is lost. Section 19, the grand narrative, what the evidence tells us when we integrate all the evidence presented in this documentary. The catastrophic history of our planet, the sophisticated achievements of ancient civilizations, the evidence of submerged settlements and structures, the geological anomalies and anomalies in the archaeological record, the astronomical and mathematical knowledge of ancient peoples, the myths and legends that preserve memory of catastrophe, a grand narrative emerges. This narrative describes a human history characterized by cycles of advancement and regression, punctuated by catastrophic disruption. It describes advanced civilizations that rose, flourished, and were destroyed by cosmic impacts, volcanic eruptions, climatic shifts, or other natural disasters. It describes survivors who preserved fragmented knowledge through oral tradition and careful teaching. It describes the slow recovery of knowledge and the rebuilding of civilization. It describes the repetition of this cycle multiple times in human history. This narrative, while speculative in its details, integrates multiple lines of evidence into a coherent whole. It explains the anomalies in the archaeological record. It explains the sophisticated knowledge of ancient peoples. It explains the global prevalence of catastrophe myths. It explains the rise and fall of civilizations. It explains the apparent sudden emergence of civilization in the archaeological record. Moreover, this narrative has profound implications for understanding human civilization today. It suggests that modern civilization, despite its technological sophistication, remains vulnerable to catastrophic disruption. It suggests that the preservation of knowledge and the maintenance of resilience in our systems are critical challenges. It suggests that the study of how ancient civilizations survived catastrophe and recovered has practical value for modern civilization. This narrative also suggests a certain humility about human progress. The linear narrative of inevitable progress from primitive to advanced, from less sophisticated to more sophisticated, is revealed as incomplete. Progress is real, but it is fragile. Civilizations can collapse, knowledge can be lost, advances can be erased by catastrophe. Yet the narrative also reveals the resilience of human civilization. Even when catastrophically disrupted, humans have survived and rebuilt. The capacity to adapt to changed circumstances, to preserve knowledge and transmit it to future generations, to recreate civilization despite overwhelming challenges. These capacities have been tested repeatedly in human history and have proven sufficient. Section 20, Conclusion, the mysteries that remain throughout this documentary. We have explored ancient mysteries, hidden structures, and geological anomalies that challenge our understanding of history and the Earth's past. We have examined evidence of sophisticated ancient civilizations, of submerged settlements beneath the seas, of monuments aligned to celestial events, of knowledge preserved in myths and traditions. We have explored theories of catastrophic disruption and cyclical civilization. Yet despite all this evidence and exploration, profound mysteries remain. We do not know the full extent of ancient civilizations or the completeness of their sophistication. We do not know how many advanced societies were destroyed by catastrophe and vanished from history. We do not know whether submerged continental shelves contain the remains of lost civilizations awaiting discovery. We do not know whether the myths of ancient peoples preserve historical memory of real events or are purely imaginative creations. We do not fully understand how ancient peoples accomplished their engineering feats or what knowledge they possessed that has been lost to modern times. These mysteries are not weaknesses in our understanding but rather opportunities. They represent frontiers for future research and discovery. As technology advances and as scholars engage with these mysteries with open minds and rigorous methodology, the hidden history of human civilization will be progressively revealed. The study of these mysteries is not merely academic exercise. It has practical implications for how we understand ourselves, how we approach challenges, and how we imagine the future. The discovery that human civilization is far more ancient than conventional chronology suggests, that sophisticated civilizations have risen and fallen, that knowledge can be preserved through catastrophe and recovered in new forms. These discoveries have profound implications for modern civilization. In closing, we return to the fundamental questions that have motivated this exploration. Who were our ancestors? What did they know? What did they create? How did they survive and thrive in a world that was, in many ways, more challenging than the world we inhabit today? What knowledge did they lose, and what might we learn from their example? The evidence presented in this documentary suggests that the answers to these questions are far more complex and far more fascinating than conventional history acknowledges. The true history of human civilization is a story of remarkable achievement, of catastrophic disruption, of resilience and recovery, of knowledge preserved and recovered. It is a story that deserves to be known, understood, and learned from. The mysteries of the ancient world remain mysteries, but they are mysteries that humanity is gradually solving. With each discovery, with each technological advance, with each reinterpretation of existing evidence, we move closer to understanding the hidden history of human civilization. The process of discovery is ongoing, and the greatest revelations about our past may yet lie ahead. Final closing statement: as you have journeyed through this exploration of ancient mysteries, hidden structures, and geological anomalies, you have encountered evidence that challenges conventional understanding of human history. You have learned of civilizations submerged beneath the waves, of monuments aligned to celestial events, of sophisticated knowledge possessed by ancient peoples, of catastrophic disruptions that reset human progress. These discoveries and theories represent not the final word on human history, but the beginning of a new understanding. The mysteries presented in this documentary will only be fully understood through continued research, discovery, and scholarly debate. The hidden history of human civilization is being revealed piece by piece through the dedicated work of archaeologists, geologists, historians, and scholars around the world. We encourage you to engage with these mysteries yourself. Consider the evidence, examine the theories, visit archaeological sites, read the scholarly literature, form your own conclusions. The study of human history and the mysteries of our past is not a closed field of expertise, but an open invitation to all people to participate in the greatest adventure of understanding, the discovery of who we are, where we came from, and what our ancestors knew. Thank you for joining us on this journey through time, mystery, and discovery. The world contains far more mysteries than most people realize, and the surface of human knowledge has barely been scratched. The future of archaeological discovery promises to reveal even more remarkable evidence of our hidden past. Subscribe to the channel for future videos exploring the mysteries of our world. And please, in the comments, tell us where you are watching this video and what time you are watching it. We would love to hear from you about what mysteries fascinate you most and what questions about human history remain unanswered in your mind. Remember, history is not finished being written. Every day new discoveries are made. Every day conventional understanding is challenged. The true story of humanity, complex, dramatic, resilient, and mysterious, is still being uncovered. The greatest age of archaeological discovery may lie ahead of us. Thank you for your attention, your curiosity, and your engagement with these profound mysteries of human civilization and Earth's hidden past.